Hello everyone, don't mind the mess. I'm just trying to give you a little heads up of what I use, the basics for my soft soldering jewelry. And first of all, this is a 4-foot folding table. So if I can work out of 4 feet, so can you. Don't recommend it, but it is possible. I mean, we won't even look at all of this that I have going on, but that's okay. Um, let's just start with flux. So the flux that I use is these two, and I use a liquid flux, and I get it all over the place on purpose because it gets in all the little cracks and crevices of my piece, and I know that solder is going to adhere well to it. And solder, I use a Silver Gleam. This is a very high quality solder. You always want to use OK Bird. You always want to use lead free because you are working with jewelry, which people will be wearing, and lead is very toxic. So you don't want to do that. No lead. But it does help to use a quality solder. This solder actually has silver in it, so it is very shiny and comes out beautiful. The only problem is that it is like $50 for this little half-pound roll. So it's expensive. So I don't recommend starting with Silver Gleam. Just start with regular lead-free solder. And when you figure out what you're doing, then you can upgrade to the good stuff. But hey, it's up to you. You do what you want. And then I just pour my solder in here, and then I have a little paintbrush that I paint everything with, all my solder or flux with. Does that make sense? I paint my flux on and then I solder. Anyway, you will need a soldering iron. I have a Weller, and then I have my old trusty rinky dink, whatever the hell this thing is. Some off brand that I got to just start out, and it's never steered me wrong. The temperature is a little weird, like it's way different than the Weller. I don't know if it's Celsius or what's going on there, but I've just learned to mess with temperature just by feel anyway, instead of like exact whatchamacallits numbers. That's the word, numbers. And then I have a little exhaust fan. It's getting a little gross over here. But it sucks all the fumes, and then it just takes it out this window that I have open. And I always use a mask, a respiratory mask as well, because you don't want to breathe in any of those fumes. And what else? We have all these different copper tapes, because anything that you use that is not an alloy or copper or brass, the solder will not adhere to it. So you will have to wrap it in tape, in a copper tape, in order to get the solder to adhere. That being said, you will need to burnish the tape onto whatever you're soldering to make sure that it is laying flat and even and stuck on there very, very well. Otherwise, the shit will fall apart, and you don't want that. So, those are kind of the basics. I use gloves because flux is not good for your skin. And I used to use these little finger mitts whenever I was starting out, just to hold things better. But now I've just kind of figured out that either my fingers are completely resistant to heat or whatever. I don't know. I don't get burned. It doesn't hurt anymore. Sometimes I'll hold it with these rusty ass pliers, and they will rust because of the flux. So I go through pliers like crazy. This one's barely opening. This one will never open again. So I have lots of pliers. I have lots of pliers. I have an X-Acto knife that's rusted out. Different tips. You'll have to work with different tips to see which one works for you. Lots of jump rings, because you will want to attach chains and such to things. Hoops and rings and anything that is brass or copper or an alloy. Of course, you can solder directly onto it. So I like to use these little moons for things that are moon curved, whatever. That's part of one of my designs. But that is the basics. We have all different kinds of other tools over here. I don't use those hardly ever. Those are in different circumstances. We can go over those later. You definitely want to have a rubber heat resistant mat. And after I'm done soldering, I always use quick clean to like spray down my mat and wipe it down. Just kind of clean up my area so there's not flux all over everything, just like gooping. If you've ever seen any of my videos, you'll see that like this whole mat gets wet with flux. And not cool, you know? So yeah, you want something like this. Anyway, those are some of the basics of what you'll need. Definitely need to get a respiratory mask. I think I said that. I just use like this one. And we'll go over some more stuff next time. But yeah, you don't need a fancy weller. You can just use this off-brand, whatever this is. It has been really good to me. I do have the weller. Sometimes I like to use different tips without changing out the tips. So I'll use both. I don't know. I'm extra. You don't have to be extra like me. But yeah, that is the beginnings of what you would need. And if you get those basics, then we can move on with our lives and get started on the actual soldering. Sorry, I'm not the best photographer, but hey, free info.